Hey guys, what's up? So I haven't made a video like this in a while, and I'm making this video because, as you guys can see, based on what's in front of us right now, the new rule set came out, 2017, the suggested rule set, and I'm just gonna go through with this and like kind of discuss what I think about it. I don't like how this rule set was released on the weekend because people go to tournaments. It's so much harder to find out you're at a tournament. And then, oh, look, there's a new rule set. And then you have to read the rule set, think about that, figure out what you like about it, talk about social media, and then still do the tournament, all the things you're doing. And obviously, that can apply to any day of the week. But with Smash players who go to the events on weekends, the weekend seems like the worst possible time for a massive rule set, document to be posted and for people to discuss it. Because you can't get a good discussion when so many people are doing so many, tournament things. So, that's just a side note. But I didn't like how this just came out of nowhere with no warning. But yeah, I had time to read over it now and look at it. I'm just going to go through the rule set and kind of discuss what I like and dislike about it. If I skip over something, that means you can assume I have no real problem with it. I feel like poor priority is unnecessary just because I don't think that matters in this game. If it does, then shoot, I had no idea. But whatever. And the first thing I found in this rule set, which I didn't like, is these three sections right here. And the thing I don't like about all these three sections... Oh, actually, no. The first two sections. What I don't like about these two sections right here is these seems like arbitrary numbers that have 30 seconds. Oh, you have 30 seconds to warm up? What if you need 35? Oh, well, too bad. You have 30. That's it. Maybe you're doing some crazy tech that you have to, really make sure you have down before the match starts. And maybe you didn't get a chance to play in a warm-up station. Maybe you just want to make sure, adjusted this TV. Maybe the TV size is a little bit different, which does affect things. Because when you look at the game, the distance between the characters might be very different, relatively speaking, to your eyes, based on how big the TV is. So, I think just saying 30 seconds is kind of a stupid number. I think it should just be, a reasonable amount of time. If we're spending 2 minutes warming up, there's a problem. But if we go over 30 seconds slightly, who cares? It's not a big deal. It's one warm-up for the set. Let us have the little bit of time we need. I don't really think people go over, a minute ever. But honestly, sometimes 30 to 40 seconds is average, so I don't know, it just seems stupid. And obviously, automatic forfeits, so what does this mean? You forfeit for both players? Do you tell one player, if one player stops moving, the other one's still there? Automatically forfeit the one player is still moving? It just seems, I don't know, it seems poor. Just say, hey, look, force start the game, force quit out of the warm-up, but just give us, a more reasonable time period and just be, I guess, adaptable with that. So I don't like this. This actually bothers me a lot. The 30 seconds. Same thing, arbitrary number, obviously be reasonable, but I think you can't just tell a player you have 30 seconds to counterpick. I'm waiting for my opponent to pick his ban. I'm thinking, when am I going to pick for this ban, that ban, blah, blah, blah. And then my opponent says, okay, I banned this stage. Now suddenly I have 30 seconds. Which, by the way, there's no clause about banning. Which, if there's going to be a clause about counterpicking, there needs to be a clause about banning, I think, to be consistent. But I don't think there should be. At least not with a specific time. It should be a reasonable amount of time. Because most people take, no time to counterpick. They take, 10 seconds, I think, and just confirm what they already thought. Because most people have a counterpick in mind for when they lose, based on a ban or whatever, at this point in the meta. 2 years into the game, we know our matchups, we know our stages. Very rarely do we need time to think. But sometimes we do. And I think also when you have these moments where people need a minute to think, where someone is game 5, it's their counterpick, and their opponent just banned the stage they were surprised was banned. Sometimes you need more than 30 seconds to think, what stage do I go to? What's my strategy on this stage? Why would they ban this stage? What stage do they want? Could they counterpick me with a character? Do I want to counterpick a character on this stage? And there's so many thoughts that go in to a counterpicking stuff that, once again, I think just be reasonable. If it's taking 2 minutes to counterpick, okay, that's a problem. If it's taking 35 or 40 seconds, whatever. I shouldn't be counterpicking, and then as soon as the counterpick starts, I have someone come to me with a clock that says, here, this is your 30 seconds. Especially because that puts a lot of stress on the players. Holy crap. The amount of stress that someone gets when they're told they have a certain amount of time, it actually makes it harder to make the decision and longer, and I think this just does that. It adds unnecessary stress to the players who are playing, and it's, we're players. We are essentially what makes this event, work. If we didn't enter these events, we'd be screwed. Well, not be screwed, but, the event wouldn't happen, Obviously, if Teal was in Teal, the event wouldn't happen, but I think this is kind of reaching really far into, I guess, like the player side of things, like what player rights should be like in tournament settings at any level of play. And I feel like this is like, it's too biased towards running the tournament on time for the TOs, when the TOs should also be like, making tournaments and kind of, adapting for the fact that it can be variable amount of time. Sometimes sets take 30 minutes because of the 5-game set. Sometimes it take 10 minutes. Obviously, the schedule needs to be adapted around how long it's going to take. And I feel like this is the same thing. Just let people do the thing. If it's unreasonable amount of time, let them know that. But just 30 seconds is a stupid arbitrary number. And like, I really gotta DQ someone for not picking a stage in 30 seconds. Like, no, it's ridiculous. If a TO actually goes through with that, I think that would be like, I think people would have problems with that. So yeah, I don't like this. And then I don't like coaching rule, not for 30 seconds. I think this is the only exception I have, solely because I'll be honest, I don't like coaching period. So that's right off the bat, that's very biased. But I think at least with coaching, you can kind of plan around your opponent having 30 seconds to have a coach, and as a coach, you can have time to plan around that. Because it's a little bit different, I think, when you have a coach, because the coach has to think to himself, okay, I have 30 seconds. How do I tell my player, they have 30 seconds to do this? So, whatever. But that's not my biggest issue here, because I don't like coaching, so I'm going to be biased naturally about it. And I don't like coaching because I feel like it creates inequalities, and I think this is obvious. But to explain it, I'm probably one of the best coaches in Smash. Like, if I watch someone's set and I really care to look at it, I can probably tell you within that first stock what's going on, what this person should do to adapt, what this opponent's doing to beat someone else, and like, I can get a good view for the game very easily, along with most top players, if not all of them. But like, so now let's say you have top player X, and they're game 5 or someone, and now he has this coach which is like Zero or myself and Nairo or Anti, some top player coach with that top player mindset. And then I have player Y, who is not top player. He is like a high level player about to close an upset. And now he has access to his coach, which is like a local friend or like another high level player, or maybe like someone who mains his character. He has a coach that, I don't like saying coach quality is based on player skill, but at the same time, it partly is because you know more about the game. So I feel like this creates an extreme inequality for the players who can get these good coaches who, are at this level of play where they have better connections and all this stuff. And obviously the TOs, like the people who made this rule set, made it with knowing this is a factor. But I feel like this is kind of breaching that point where it's creating inequality for the players, where two players can be equally skilled, but one has more connections, more results, and travels more. Therefore, he has the advantage purely here. Obviously, seeding and stuff is an advantage, but like, I don't know, this just feels different because now it's a 2v, like it can be a 2v1 essentially if you don't have a good coach or if you don't have a coach period, or it can be an unfair 2v2 that you really can't plan for because you can't get the coach your opponent can get, and then suddenly you lose a set because your opponent's coach is better than yours, giving advice. And I feel like also this breaches essentially like what I like about fighting games and is that's a 1v1. Any other competitive game except like I guess RTSs like StarCraft, it's a team game. FPSs, MOBAs, I can't think of anything else, but I mean, just the point is, one of the best things about a fighting game or any 1v1 game is that's 1v1. That's you versus your opponent, that's it. And so, by doing this, you take away that 1v1 aspect. It now becomes a team game. If you don't want to play a competitive team game, then don't play Smash at this point. And that's obviously exaggeration, but that's where it feels like it's leading to with this kind of rule. So, I don't like that. Retardedness, whatever, obviously collusion. I agree with this. Even though it's kind of stupid, I got affected by point 9 along with, Como, Zach, etc. It's hard to replay a match. Like, if I play my set and I found the rules are wrong and I lost, I'm going to be kind of upset that I lost regardless. And if I get to play again, I'm not going to be happy to get to play again. I'll probably still be upset that I lost and I won't be in the right mindset. Or even if it's a game, It's also because, like, say, I now know my opponent's going to do this game 1 on this stage because I played him once. Now, they don't have that strategy anymore. And essentially it helps me because I had the time to adapt. And so does my opponent, but the point is the game is different after you play it. And you can't just go and replay it and have the same exact results because the results will be very different when people adapt. And inversely, if I won and I found the rules are wrong and I have to play again, if I lose, I'll be super mad. If I win, I'm going to just be burning mental energy and I'll still be mad. like, it just messes with players' mindsets, I think, more to replay a game that was wrong settings than to just, like, just say, okay, the rules say, hey, the game stands to respect the fact you play with the wrong rules. Now, that said, I'm going to be checking every single, like, setting before I play matches in any of my, setups now, especially on streams and big stages for obvious reasons. But, yeah. So, I do agree with this rule, despite the fact that it negatively affected me. Because I think at the end of the day, it was a bad situation. And I think this is making the best of it for the players. Blah, 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 final rule, blah, blah, game settings, blah, blah, blah. Then stage list, obviously. So I talked about my ideal stage list on Twitter. I made a tweet longer about it. But my ideal stage list essentially is 5 stages. Battlefield, FD, Smashville, Town, Lilat. No Duck Hunt, I think, obviously some people split on it, but I think overall we can kind of, like, as a community agree to get rid of Duck Hunt. It's not good for the game. It's not good for esports. It's just not good, period. Because it creates degenerate play. A lot of times you're finding a character that can time you off for free, you're forced to ban it. And it's stupid. That's a very bad stage, so I don't really want to talk about that much. Now, there's 3 stages here, which affect striking, of course, because now you only strike 3 stages. And one argument could be made that with this kind of stage list, Battlefield, FD, Smashville, a lot of times you just go Smashville, to be honest. Because a lot of times you have 2 characters that either like the same stages, and so you can get, like, a stage agree on, or the characters have the, like, opposite likes. Like, a character likes FD, a character likes Battlefield. You strike each other's favorite stage, boom, Smashville, which is theoretically the most even stage. In practicality, not necessarily, especially in Smash 4, I think some characters really benefit from it. But I understand why they're going with this stage list, but I still think 5 would be better just because not only do you have a bit more of a balanced stage list with 5, or a lot more balance of a stage list, it also doesn't give advantage to the person who strikes second. Because as it stands, striking first, it sucks. Like, oh, I don't know what stage my opponent wants. Well, I guess I just gotta, and I strike first. Well, I guess I gotta just take a guess. And inversely, my opponent doesn't know what stage I want. I get to strike second. I'm in a great position. Because I could want Battlefield or FD or Smashville, and they don't know. And they have no way to know this, and they have to make the decision first without the information. And once again, I feel like this is before the game even starts. The person who won the RPS already has the advantage. Like, this isn't even the game. This is outside the game. Just, hey, you lost RPS, you have to strike first. Guess what? You're at a disadvantage based on knowledge in a lot of scenarios. And so, I don't know. It might be bad for the game. It might work out well. It might just be, stage choices are kind of linear for most people in most matchups that it just ends up being fine. I think in Brawl, the Japanese did this for a while. And even in Smash 4, they did it for a while. And they only re-switched because the American scene was doing more stages. But anyway, so that's what I don't like about this. And then I think the rest of the rules is where it gets weird. So Dreamland 64 being banned when Battlefield was banned, if by default, which is kind of weird that it's by default. If you ban one, you ban the other. And you can't just choose and pick, because sometimes I want to go to Dreamland but not Battlefield, or vice versa. And this happens a lot, actually. And this isn't just me saying this. This is a lot of people, like high-level players, top-level players, who agree that the stages are different, not that you can't just ban one and not the other. I mean, you can't just ban it both at the same time. Sometimes you want to go to one or the other. The wind, the fact that the platforms on Dreamland, I believe, are higher on the sides but lower on the top, which affects ladders and platform movement and all this stuff. The fact that I believe it's the side platforms on Dreamland are both smaller than the side platforms on Battlefield, which affects, just landing, trapping landing, edge cancels, all this stuff. And then the whole pineapple thing on the side of the stage for recovering. Even the way these slopes are on the ledge. Like, there's so many differences. And then there's blast zones, of course, that I feel you can't just blanket this. But at the same time, there's also a lot of overlap where, one stage you strike Battlefield and then the opponent goes Dreamland and vice versa. So it's an awkward situation. And that's why I don't like Dreamland, because I feel like, as a whole, the times when the differences matter enough to, matter, it's a cool stage, but a lot of times the differences don't matter enough when the platform layout's still tri-platform, that it just ends up being unfair. So, I don't like this stage, period. Another thing I don't like about this rule set, though, is that a lot of times I find myself actually disliking Dreamland, the same matchups, I dislike Town in. And that's going to sound weird, and the reason for that is a a lot of characters who can get early kills in town with like kill confirms and setups and ladders and all these things because of the low ceiling can get the same exact kind of setups on Dreamland 64 because they have the tri-platform layout plus the average height ceiling that Battlefield doesn't have. So a lot of times if I'm worried about getting killed off the top early, like for Zero Suit or Fox, I care a lot more about town and Dreamland than I care about Dreamland Battlefield, just because of that whole like killing off the top with really early like stuff shenanigans. And I just think it's stupid. I think this is a very like kind of the TOs like just overlooked it and didn't actually understand what's happening. So I don't like that. And then the Omega Stages thing I dislike because it's so selective. It's, okay, here's some Omega Stages you can pick, but only these specific Omega Stages. And at this point, if you're going to allow Omega Stages, it has to be all or nothing. Same with, like, customs and Miis and all that stuff, where if you're going to allow, like, some sort of player choice, some sort of player variety, and, like, that kind of stuff, you have to let us have all the Omegas. You have to let us have all the decisions, all the choices, all the different mechanics. You can't just say, oh, walls are good for this game, we're going to add walls. Oh, this stage has a slightly different underside, well, that's fine then. But you can't say, and then you can't just say, oh, by the way, Palutena's Temple, use like 1% later off the top or the size or something like that, have to ban it. You know, or this stage has a slightly different, like, ledge, have to ban it. You know, you can't pick and choose the mechanics you want and put it in a competitive fashion, because that's not fair. That is completely unfair to the players, because that specifically benefits some players and hurts others, and of course stage meta does, but this is picking and choosing. This is like if you said, hey, this custom is not broken, so you can have this custom, but this custom is banned because it's too broken. You know, it's doing that, but with stages. So with Omegas, I think you should have none of them personally, because I think this essentially, having Omega stages is having customs for FD. You know, we have FD. Deal with it. You don't like FD, don't go to it. Don't say you don't like FD unless it has walls, because it's not FD, it's another stage. It's custom FD. So I think that's really stupid. And what else was there? I think that was about it. Imp striking, blah, blah, blah. I do like how they add all the controller options, because even though there are sometimes controller issues, honestly, TOs like controller, like pro controllers get away anyway. I have not been to a tournament where I've seen a TO flat out say, hey, look, the rules say you can't have pro controller, so you can't have pro controller. Banned. I've never seen that. So they might as well just allow it. You know, if people cause a problem with it, you DQ them. And keep it as simple as that, because I think at the end of the day, you know, the people who cause problems with the controllers are very minimal, and it's becoming less and less as people are getting, like, you know, people that attend tournaments with these controllers, obviously casual players who attend and don't, like, you know, do this stuff, but I'd say the average player that goes to big events especially is experienced in events to, like, know not to cause problems, you know, take the batteries out, all that stuff. So I think this is fine. Now, something I want to talk about. So with this rule set, overall, you know, a lot of things make sense. Nothing crazy. You know, just, hey, these are some rules that clarify this to make the tournament run better, all these kind of things, and whatever. Now, the thing I don't like about this rule set as a whole, though, is that not only the timing was bad, but, okay, so, no, there's like, okay, let's look at this, because I can't speak right now. So, people who contributed: Tantalus, Bam, Bear, Blind, Champ, D1, Martakia, Tantalus, TLTC, TMPR, Vasev, Zan, and Nintendo created a template. There's a few problems I have with this. First of all is that this is like all TOs. There's a couple players here. Obviously everyone here plays the game, but like, you know, the only people I really consider like players over like TOs, I'd say is TLTC, I guess. Now, I consider Zan more like, you know, like a guy that does work on the side or whatever. But none of these people are top players. None of these people are the people that have to play with the rule set. In the past, pretty much all rule sets were kind of not unanimously decided by top players, but discussed, you know. Customs. We gave customs a try because top players, high-level players, everyone else was kind of like iffy on it. You know, we said, okay, we'll try it out. After EVO, we said, hey, you know, the average top player, high-level player does not like customs. We tried it out. We discussed it. We'll get rid of them. And we were playing the game we want to play at that point. And when it came to 3-stock versus 2-stock, you know, we discussed it. We played it out. And it was up to the players, the people in these tournaments kind of like going far on them who kind of have like, you know, more in the line for these tournaments, money, pride, you know, just time in the game. You know, these people who really built themselves and, like, you know, needed these tournaments to play in them and affected them a lot were the ones that were deciding the rule set and discussing about it. And Yeah, and so even when we didn't like a rule set, if it was generally agreed among the top players and like the people in general playing the game for money at that level, then it was okay. We didn't agree with it, but at the end of the day, it was still the player's choice. But with this list, it's not the player's choice. I feel like as a top player, my input on the game that I play competitively to essentially make a living right now while I'm going to college, that I don't have any input on it. That the people who I play the game with, who also share, the same kind of circumstances, making a living off this game, maybe solely this game, maybe as a side job, whatever it is, those people who have to play the game, who are affected most by these rules, like stages and stuff, and even like coaching rules and everything else, are the ones with the least input on this. And I don't think that's fair. I really dislike that, and I actually just hate that. And also, another thing I don't like about this is the people contacted were mostly like, West Coast, I'd say. Bam, West Coast, Bear, West Coast. I don't know who Blind is, to be honest. Champ, West Coast. D1, pretty much West Coast now. I don't know Martikios either. Tantalus, East Coast. TLC, West Coast. TMP, I don't know. Vasef is like Midwest. Zan, West Coast. And obviously there's more big tournaments on the West Coast than anywhere else in the United States. But if we're going to make a recommended 2017 rule set for all major events, that essentially any tournament that wants to run in 2017 has to run this rule set. I don't care if it's a local or regional. If you want your players to be ready for the big events, you have to run this rule set. That's a fact. Because if you're running a 7-stage rule set, and then your players go to another region, have to play with this stage list, they will have to adapt, they won't be ready for it, and they'll have the immediate disadvantage. So, I don't like that. They didn't get the input from enough people. They kind of just made their own group and said, hey, look, we are the TOs for big events. We want these rules so we can run the event properly without considering, without getting player input. We're going to do this, and you guys have to deal with it. And so, yeah, I dislike that. I think that's very, honestly, offensive. And I don't really speak against this stuff much, because, normally I understand, the perspective. I can kind of reason it out and just all this stuff, but, here, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Along with the fact that I feel like lately, events have become less and less player-oriented, and more, oriented towards esports, or, the stream, and the viewers, and, not the people paying money traveling out to these events to compete. If I'm paying money in an event, I should be paying money to enter an event with rules that I can at least agree with and helped at least be able to discuss with. Even if I couldn't change the rule set personally, I would have liked to have input on the rule set I'm going to be playing in for lots of money that I'm going to be traveling across the country for. I think everyone would like that. I think we'd at least like a panel of people we can trust, top 50 PGR players who could talk out and discuss and say, okay, this is the rule set we want to play and we think is fair, acceptable, based on our pro-level experience of the game. I think that'd be a lot better. So, yeah, and I think in general, though, for tournaments, this has been an issue more recently where, as esports has taken off a bit, it's become a lot less player-oriented. For example, Genesis. After I lost to Como and Winners, I was told immediately, within seconds, not even with enough time to cool down, go drink, get a bathroom, reverse that order. But I had no time to cool down. I was told, hey, go play, I think it was Elegant? It was someone. And I had to tell him, hey, look, I need a 5 to 10 minute break because I literally just lost. Give me a 5 to 10 minute break to cool down, get some water, go to the bathroom, relax. If the tournament's running not on time, running poorly for an event we have 3 days to do, you know what? I am not the TO. I'm just a player. I was just following the schedule. You told me to wait to play on stream. Give me my time to relax. You're not just going to force me to play match after match. If you're not running this event in a way that gives me the time between matches to prepare. And, that should be happening. I shouldn't be playing. No one should be playing a match after they lose for an event that has 2 days to run through a 1,000-person bracket with lots of setups and a lot of people TOing. I don't care. There's no excuse for that. And after that, I shouldn't be playing another match immediately after that. I think I played Como, then Elegant 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, and then I had to play Mars immediately afterwards. I told him once again, hey, look, give me 5 to 10 minutes because I just played. I need to cool down, all that stuff. And they gave me the time, so I do appreciate and respect that. It's just I shouldn't have to argue for this time in the first place. It should be a given, You give someone at least 10 minutes after they play a set win or lose, unless they're like, the grand finals of an event, winners finals, where it's like, you can't really like play other matches, and it's like, you can't wait. The event's almost over. But like if you're just running through a bracket, I should at least know I'm gonna be playing a match as soon as I finish, and it shouldn't just be a shock. And things like that. Things like setups and stuff, which at Genesis was good. This overnight venue, their setups were there all to like end of Sunday, and that's just something I hope continues. Is that like, we continually have these free setups for players to play in, because if people are paying venue fee and all this stuff, we shouldn't be playing a tournament and then finding out, Sunday morning there's no setups for anyone to play in, despite the fact that we paid for 3-day venue. Because once again, that's ruining the player experience. Might as well not pay the venue at that point. So yeah, I'm just worried that with the way things are going, that the game is becoming less about the players when I see a rule set like this and just the recent experiences, and more about the esports and the stream and that stuff, when at the end of the day, the tournament should be catering, I think, mostly to the players playing. Because if the players playing the game are not happy and they don't enter tournaments, then the game itself, like, it gets hurt. It negatively affects the game. If the players are enjoying the tournaments, we want to attend more, we're having fun at the events, we agree with the rules, all that stuff, it positively affects the game. So I guess that's my input on, the rule set. This was a lot longer video than I wanted it to be, but I guess I had to cover a lot of things. And with that, I'm going to sign out. Let me guys know what you think in the comments below, if you agree or disagree, if you want to talk about things. I just want to see like everyone's input on everything here.